What's up, YouTube? What's good? It's been a while. Today we got 10 mixing myths, and I'm gonna cut the BS. Let's get to it. Myth number 1: attack and release times on compressors are a delay before compression starts and before compression ends. That is not the case. Here I've set up a synth that just plays a tone instantly. There is no initial start or end. It just instantly plays the tone. Zero attack, okay? Sounds like that. And here on this compressor, I've got the attack set as slow as it'll go and the release set as slow as it'll go. And you will see that it's not a delay before the compression starts. The compression starts as soon as the threshold is surpassed. That is when compression starts. The attack time is the amount of time it takes for the compressor to go from uncompressed to fully compressed. It's more of an attack speed, and that's usually how I like to refer to it, is a speed. And the same thing applies to the release. When we let go of the compression, it's not that there's a delay before it stops compressing. It's the speed at which it goes from fully compressed to completely not compressed. Check it out. Watch this compression meter over here, gain reduction really. Notice how it slowly gets fully compressed, and then when I let go, it slowly becomes less compressed. Now, if I speed these up, check this out. You see? It's the speed, not a delay, it's a speed. If I do it instantly, it's just a speed, that's all it is. All right, myth number 2. You shut up, fridge. Don't EQ more than 3 dB, or don't over EQ in general. This can apply to certain instruments, like melodic instruments that change notes, but drums, don't be afraid with the EQ. Check this out. All right, here we got a floor tom. Check it out. As you can see here, I'm doing 12.5 decibels boost at about 5K. And I'm cutting about 4 dB in the low mids at about 500. But let's back off that high-end boost to 3 dB and then check it out. Way more dull. Check it out again with all fully boosted 12.5. Way brighter, way more modern, sounds way more punchy, way better. All right, myth number 3, never hard clip. Don't do it, or I'm telling on you. Nah. Do hard clip. Hard clipping is tight. We got a snare drum over here, and one thing that snare drums like to do is when you're mastering, they like to disappear when a limiter hits them. I'm going to show you what happens to a snare when the limiter hits it. Listen to the beginning of that note, the transient. Now listen to that when we hard clip it with the exact same amount. Way more transient. We want the transient. Hard clipping is good, especially for snares. Now, hard clipping can get really nasty depending on what you're doing it on. If you're doing it on like guitars, it's going to create some nasty fizzy sounds. Drums is really where it does the best work, and you can actually hard clip your masters to get your masters even louder, but you don't want to push them too far to where other things besides the drums are hard clipping. Number 4, don't overcompress. I've heard people say that if you're compressing more than 3 dB that you're overcompressing. So right here I've got 2 plugins, but really they're doing 3 stages of compression. This one on the left here has this comp right here, but also this magic slider also does compression. And then on the right here, I've got this 1176 Bluey that's doing more compression. Let's check out how it sounds in the mix.
Is this what you wanted?
The vocal is nice and forward and in your face, and you can hear all the little character to when she's singing. Now, let me just get rid of this compression here on the left from JJP. And then I'm also going to get rid of this compression from the CLA 76. And so we're only going to have the compression from the magic slider, which is still a little bit. And it's probably more similar to what most people would say is not overcompressing.
Is this what you wanted? This what
You see how the vocal is kind of tucked back, it's losing attitude, it's not in your face, it's kind of dipping in and out. Back with the original settings, if you look at the CLA 76, I'm hitting it pretty hard. I can't really tell exactly how much I'm doing on this JJP, but I can see how much I'm doing on the CLA 76. Check it out.
is this what you wanted?
So on the CLA 76 alone, I'm doing about 10 dB of gain reduction. And on the JJP, I'm going to guess there's at least another 8. So maybe 18 dB of gain reduction. Definitely a good idea to overcompress vocals, but you got to do it the right way. You got to use the right compressors. You got to get your attack and release settings just right. Other things that do well with overcompression is bass, because you really don't want the bass, the low end of your mix, moving up and down. You really want it consistent so that you can make the low end big and loud, but without it being overbearing sometimes. You can also overcompress snares and get a ton of punch out of them. Okay, moving on. Myth number 5, EQing in solo is bad. Here's how you can do EQ in solo for the greater good of humankind. So here in this mix, you can hear that there's something whistling. Now you could cut that from the entire mix and figure it out, but then you're going to be losing that frequency for all the instruments, and your mix isn't going to sound full. So instead, let's try and figure out what instrument is creating that problem. It's not the drums. It's not the bass. It's the guitars. So we put an EQ on the guitar subgroup. And then we search around. There it is. Boom, we fixed it. But we fixed it in solo. Mixing in solo has its place. Haha, touche. Myth number 6. Kick and bass should be separated into different low-end frequencies, like the kick should be below the bass, or the bass should be below the kick. Not anymore. Maybe back in the day, but not anymore. We ain't doing that no more. So on the right over here, you got your kick drum EQ, and then on the left over here, we got our bass EQ. Let's check out what we're looking at. They're kind of living in the same range. So on the left over here on the bass, what I'll try to do right now is cut out all the subs so that the kick can live in the sub range versus the bass. The bass will actually live in the 80 to 100 range. So on the kick drums, I'll take out some of the, 80 to 100 range here. And we get this. I think it sounds pretty weak like that. But if we undo these plugins, and then instead we have the bass, low end of the bass, duck down whenever the kick hits. This is a much more modern approach to a solid, thick low end. They can live in the same space and still be punchy. Myth number 7. You should master to -14 LUFS. I should have made this number 14. Wait, there isn't that many myths, but if there was 14 myths, this would be a good 14th one. The reason this doesn't apply, let me show you. Check out how loud this metal master I have is right here. -9, -8 LUFS, quite a bit louder, right? Because it's metal. Metal can be loud. That's like the whole point of metal, is being loud and in your face, being aggressive. Versus, if you're doing acoustic music or like a soft pop song, you probably don't want it that loud. You want it to be soft and gentle. You probably don't even want it to be -14 LUFS. You probably want it to be even less than that. You gotta master and make things as loud as is appropriate for the song. Myth number 8, you get what you pay for. Not necessarily true. Sure, super cheap microphones suck, but this mic right here, this SM7B, has been used on a ton of amazing records. Sure, people will say Michael Jackson Thriller, but that's an old album. The Weeknd used it on a record, Childish Gambino, Green Day, just about every modern metal band ever. If it's really you get what you pay for, why wouldn't the top artists use the Sony C800G? Look at this. Look at how expensive this thing is. And an even bigger point on this is free versus paid plugins. Here on these plugins here, I've got this Pro L2, which is very commonly used. It's a paid plugin, about $200. Versus a completely free limiter that I really like called LoudMax. Very negligible difference, and a lot of times I actually prefer LoudMax and find it to be cleaner. Don't come at me, don't come at me. Free is always winning, you know what I mean? When you're looking for a plugin, see if there's a free version. I tell you what, sometimes it's better. Analog Obsession, look that up. All right, myth number 9, using different guitar tones for left and right. People will suggest this because it makes your mix wider. And while that has some truth to it, there's a big problem. Check it out. So I've got a different tone on the right, a different amp, a triple X, and a different cab. And then on the left, I have a 6505 also with a different cab. And check out what this sounds like. To me, this kind of sounds like the right side is sticking out a little bit, and almost like the left side feels lower. But they're actually matched in volume. What it is there's different frequencies going on, and our ears are more sensitive to certain frequencies, like around the 2 to 3K range. So maybe that one on the right has a little bit more 2 to 3K, and so it appears louder. But then the whole mix feels like it's shifted to one side. It doesn't feel balanced. The guitars are already playing different things, so there will already be width from the different performances and the slight variations there. What I like to do is, instead of having different sounds on each side, put the different sounds on the same side of each, and then you just quad track it that way. So then you get more width from the quads and a different flavor from each track on each side. Check that out. Now, instead of it sounding lopsided, it sounds full and balanced. And you can still get the cool sound of 2 amps blending together. Myth number 10. Cut instead of boost. And what I'm referring to is EQ. A lot of people say you should only be cutting things, don't boost. Or just to cut in general rather than to boost. If you can cut instead of boosting, then it's going to be better. Which kind of makes sense because there's this theory that when you push things louder, it sounds better to your ears. So when you're just boosting frequencies, it sounds better, right? And that can be true, but one of the top mixers, Chris Lord-Alge, CLA, he's known for just boosting a ton of top end and low end and doing kind of smiley face EQs, and he has some of the best sounding records out there. So on this vocal right here, I wanted it to feel like the vocal was a little bit more up front. And you can do that by boosting high mids. You can see I boosted 2.6. It's a pretty minimal amount at 1.4K. Check it out without it on.
Is this what you wanted?
And then with it on,
Is this what you wanted?
so it's a little bit more in your face. It's just sitting on top of the mix a little bit more because it's a pop vocal. Now, to achieve this with cutting, I would have had to cut everything else. All of the low mids, the lows, and the highs. So it just would have been completely counterintuitive to what I needed to happen. And don't be afraid to boost a lot of high end. And if you look on this JJP vocal plugin here, I'm boosting lows and I'm boosting highs. If it sounds better, that's all that matters. One of my favorite quotes from CLA is, "There's no wrong way to make a sound." If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you want to see some more. Peace out!